Hi everyone, how are you doing today? If you're new to my channel, my name is Marian and I make book reviews about classic literature, history, and sometimes nonfiction. In this video, I'm going to be going over some tips to help you become a better reader, especially now, in 2022, people are getting out more, traveling more, and it can be kind of hard to keep up a good reading habit. And I did a video about this a few weeks ago, but I wanted to follow up with some more specific advice to really help you get the most out of your reading during these times. So first thing let's go over is, what are some ways to read more classic literature with the limited time that we do have? And I have a very simple formula for this. You choose a well-known author, a very famous author, and then choose the shortest book that they wrote. So, for example, John Steinbeck of Mice and Men. Steinbeck, author of many great books, some very famous tomes such as East of Eden. Maybe you don't have an East of Eden compatible schedule. Pick up of Mice and Men. This clocks in at about a little over 100 pages, but it's a great way to say you've read Steinbeck and grasp a lot of his themes. You can fill in some of those gaps using online resources, but read this. You can say you've read Steinbeck and carry on a pretty good conversation with all of your book-loving friends. Same thing with Virginia Woolf. The Waves is a bit tedious and long. To the Lighthouse also on the longer side, I believe. But Mrs. Dalloway, this one is also pretty short, a little bit longer than of Mice and Men at almost 200 pages. But, actually, if you can find some of her short stories or essays, also a good way to get into Virginia Woolf and be able to talk about her with the book reading community. Another one that's a very common challenge for all of us is those Russian authors. I did a video on Crime and Punishment recently, a very long book, and I'll get into tips on how to read those longer books in a minute. But, you just want to get into Russian literature and you're feeling like you just don't have time. Well, I would recommend picking up First Love, and purely on the basis of the fact that it's 106 pages plus a tiny little bit of another page, you can say you've read some Russian literature and really feel like you've been exposed to a great tradition without spending too much of your limited time. So those are some great ways to maximize your reading potential. And I've got a little bit more on that I want to say, but first, let's talk about briefly what is a classic. And you're going to get a lot of opinions on that. I've watched a lot of videos by some of my booktube colleagues, and I don't really think, I think they're kind of overcomplicating it a bit, and I'll tell you what I mean. The way to figure out if a book is a classic is much easier than some of these other YouTubers are going to be telling you. All you have to do is check the pages, and if they're gold, then it's a classic, okay? Very easy way to distinguish classics from other works of fiction. This book, for example, Dune by Frank Herbert, has this chalky turquoise pages. Absolutely not a classic by anyone's standards in any way, shape, or form. So you can read that in private, but you're going to want to be seen reading the books with the gold pages. So just a little tip for y'all if you're getting kind of overwhelmed by figuring out what's a classic and what's not a classic. As I mentioned a moment ago, though, there are those longer books that you want to read, whether it's Dune or Lord of the Rings, or in this case, Christine Lavren's Daughter, a Norwegian novel. And these are going to be taking you up to well over 1,000 pages. Now, let me move this aside for a minute. To be quite honest with you, and this was my whole approach with Crime and Punishment, nobody has time for these kinds of books. And there's a little known secret that I've been sort of hesitant to share, but I feel like now would be a good time, especially now that people are socializing again and getting out of their pandemic isolation. The approach I always take is I look for the dialogues. So what are dialogues? They're the parts of the book where you're going to see a lot of quotes and back and forth people talking to each other. Always read that part. It's by far like the quickest parts to read. And then you'll get to some of these sections further on where you'll have paragraph blocks, where the author's kind of giving more historical context or giving you some insights into the character's feelings. Now, you might think that's all really, really critical to your understanding of the novel, but in all honesty, after my 20 years of reading, I would say that no, in fact, we're all human, so obviously we know these characters just by what they say, and you don't need to read all of that other stuff. If you do feel like you need to get into some of those parts, you can read the first sentence of every paragraph. Another thing I like to do oftentimes is, read like the beginning of the left page and then the end of the right page. We're all very smart readers. We can kind of fill in the blanks. So just a way to expedite your reading speed and get the most out of your appreciation of this literature without, getting too carried away. Okay. So let's say, fiction's not really your thing and you're doing a lot of traveling these days. What would be a great book to bring along for your adventures? I would really recommend some philosophy. Philosophy always looks great in your hand on a bus, on a train, on a plane, a cruise ship, anywhere that you're going to be seen publicly. Makes you look like you're actually doing some deep thinking. And especially if you're picking up someone like Kierkegaard, be sure to correct people's pronunciation on that. This is like a pocket-sized edition of Fear and Trembling and the Sickness unto Death. So, really giving off that aura of you're contemplating your life choices and looking to make friends, but not actually going to be speaking to anyone unless they can recognize the title of this book. So yes, would recommend. If you're going to be reading philosophy, definitely bring along some sticky notes. Would recommend probably marking every other page, marking those places that really resonate with you, right? But then, maybe that's a little bit sparse and you're going to need some material for your book review. So every other page is a good way to mark things. I'm still working on this one, but yeah, that would be my recommendation for your public reading endeavors. And you might be thinking, well, I actually don't want to read philosophy. Philosophy is for social outcasts. What can I do that will make me seem like I'm part of society? Well, I've got a book for you there as well. This is a classic in its own right, and I realize it doesn't have gold pages, but this is Cracking the Coding Interview, known as the Green Book in the tech industry. And, again, those who know will know. 189 programming questions and solutions. This is a wonderful book because aesthetically speaking, the interior really exudes a lot of knowledge. And if people ask you, whoa, tell me what you're learning about. The good thing about this book is it actually has the solutions right in line with the problems. So there's no need to awkwardly look in the back, right? You can just sort of summarize or paraphrase what you're reading here and carry on a pretty decent conversation. And if people ask you, well, where are you interviewing? You can be vague and mysterious and say that there's an NDA. Or you can just be like, I'm applying for this startup, and just pick any object you see in your immediate space. That's a really good way to show that you're comprehending the challenges of the world and bringing a lot to the table to help optimize the solutions for everybody's sociological and technological problems. So that's all I had for this video. It went a little long, but I hope you find something interesting here. Let me know in the comments if you have any tips, hacks, advice for reading, and do let me know if you have read any of these books. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and email your friends, and I will see you next time.